Hello and welcome to Fractal Praxis Wednesday evening weirding sessions. Today I'm going to be continuing the talk where I left off last time about developing agency and developing sovereignty. So where we left off was we need to be self-organized. We crave to be self-organized and to be fully responsible for the results we get from our actions and interactions in this life in order to be sovereign. So to understand how free we can possibly get, like what is the upper limit of agency or freedom? To understand how free we can get, we should talk here about sovereignty. So my friend and teacher and colleague, Deacon Rada of Squiggles, has a book coming out called Design Sovereignty, which I've read parts of. And he defines sovereignty as kind of the union between power, one's ability to enact, and will, meaning what one decides one does. So what this means is if you are sovereign, then what you mean to get done gets done, right? It's effectiveness of action. It's the power to achieve things, but also the choice of what is worthy of getting achieved. Right? What gets accomplished? And to have harmony in that, to have effectiveness in that. Deacon says sovereignty is internally developed within an entity and that this is true fractally at all scales. So it's true of a person, it's true of a household, it's true of a community, a society, or even a nation. Sovereignty is developed internally. So a sovereign person is someone who has reduced the gap between their intention and the reality, which means two things. They have a really good intention and power to enact it in the reality. Good intention just meaning like apt, like it is suited to reality. And therefore they can also enact it, right? So there's that braided aspect between intention and reality. And as amazing as this sounds, like imagine if this was your life and this was always true for you and you were fully sovereign. We have a model for this, for what this supreme sovereignty looks like, and it's all around us, actually, if we're looking for it. Sovereignty is modeled to us by the wild living beings everywhere in the natural world. Consider, as my elder Gary Snyder taught, that it is the contention of civilization to claim that what is wild or natural has the same meanings as the words disorganized or unpredictable or outrageous, right? That's what we think of when we think of wild. When in fact, so-called wild living systems are extremely well organized to the point of being elegant, even regenerative. For instance, a mountain lion is organized dynamically by a cognitive process of filtering and acting upon the various signals making up her awareness and her biological imperatives in a continuous moment-to-moment stream of decisions, right? The stimuli can include external signals like smells and sounds, the contours of the terrain surrounding her, and internal signals like hunger or fatigue. The mountain lion is perfectly capable of self-organizing around these inputs. There's no need whatsoever to import any external resources in order to simply exist successfully. She is in a flow state, continuously responding effectively to her environment in a fluid relationship with it. And we can't get much more free than that, than a fluid, effective, mutual relationship between the organism and the environment. That's the height of all possible freedom. That singular state combining innocence and immense sophisticated intelligence, that's what we want to achieve, this height of freedom. Freedom to be what we really are. The lion is whole. She is exactly who and what she is. That's freedom, and that's the freedom that we are after. That wild beings enjoy sovereign, self-organized existence is something that we ourselves yearn to return to. And the fact that the mountain lion's very existence contributes beneficially to its environment, that's right there is the genius of life as a negentropic system. And when we say we want freedom, I think we really want that kind of freedom, that kind of elegance, to be so adapted, so perfectly fit to your environment and to your capacities and to your purpose in life that you can't help but thrive and contribute to the thriving of everybody around you. I think in a way, reclaiming that this is possible through organic, self-organizing action is our birthright, is like reclaiming our birthright as living beings to experience that total self-organization. Spontaneous, sophisticated responses, actions that are beautiful and create beauty, spontaneous, mutual benefiting, frictionless existence where all challenges and opportunities are met in the moment. This is self-making, or autopoiesis, which is a behavior and principle of living beings. To reach the utmost desired state where we are perfectly actualized and perfectly adaptive to our worlds, there's these two practices to keep in dynamic tension. So we want to discern carefully and think thoughtfully about the choices you have available to you, the patterns that are around you in your situation, and the patterns that you wish to spread and those that you wish to contain. And then there's becoming more natural, which is easy, and it's in flow. It looks like living an open and curious-minded life while also acting and believing and being from your true self. And as a result, you don't have a lot of cognitive dissonance when you are pursuing, that realization of the self. So we're going to get more into what is the true self and how to really cultivate that, and how to synchronize and attune really, really well with your environments in the next talk about sync. SYNCH. So if we can keep these practices in balance, and if we can reach a place where we are making effective decisions at any scale, that are also increasing the conditions for complexity, which is what life wants, then that makes us both sovereign and deeply embedded in life, to which we owe everything, to which any meaning we are making with our lives ultimately returns. And so it's ironic, right, that the most agency we could possibly express looks like total fitness in the evolutionary sense, being fit to our environments, and being so supportive of our environments that we kind of disappear. We go invisible because we are so adequately enmeshed with our environments. So the self disappears, but it's also a really powerful achievement of a sovereign being to actually reach that place. So there's definitely some paradox here. Ultimately, though, coming back to this idea of discerning and pruning the patterns in our lives, remember that we are always selecting for something, consciously or not consciously. Having an evolutionary framework for what it is you believe and for how to test those beliefs in the world and gather meaningful feedback, that's good. And that gives us structure for our lives, for our discipline as we develop agency. In my experience, my self-definition certainly expanded to include more of the whole as I developed and reached different thresholds of maturity in my mind and in my way of being in the world. So because my self-definition today includes the whole, it's been a practice for many years now that I will heavily leverage dreams and insights and visions that I receive or access, however you want to think about it, to navigate my life and make decisions. So I'm often operating from the central processing channel as much as I can. And when I can't, I try to not make any significant decisions until I can. So the way I live is to give intensive meaning to things as a norm. In general, that's what I'm doing. And so I dance in this liminal space between dreams and reality. Often I'm in a position of midwifing dreams as they merge with reality or come true, in other words, or worlds that want to be born into this one. And I am intuiting what that is, and I'm facilitating that process. Because again, after a certain point in development, one transcends shallow concepts of self and instead resides in a more integrated understanding of self as a contiguous experience of all living conditions and all living beings. And when we raise our outcome to the maximum place, when we raise our awareness to the most possible limits of our possible awareness, we land here at interbeing. And if we understand interbeing, then we must act as if it is true, right? So you are making the most meaning, and the world around you is also making the most meaning for itself out of your existence. So what this leads to is that as the definition of the self expands, one shifts from a focus on doing what one wants to do to doing what one must, which is actually freedom. Again, here is a paradox that it's really worthwhile to sit with, and I really like how Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj talks about it, about the difference between doing what one wants and what one must. Lately, from a personal note, I've been embodying as a land steward here in Golden, Colorado, which was absolutely not a given at many earlier moments and stages of my life. It's been an emerging blossom on the tree of my life only in the last 2 to 3 years in a significant way, although I've been studying living systems and participating in permaculture and indigenous life ways for longer than that. But me acting and living as a land steward here is not a given. But this time is rich with learnings and with its own special set of meanings, of the meanings of things in the world. This lifestyle means sacrifice. It means doing things on the timeline of the land, the animals, the plants that I am partially responsible for, not when I might prefer to do them. This lifestyle means rigorous attunement, constant listening, observing, and interacting. This lifestyle means lots of community caretaking, hand-holding, training, and educating. It's a tiring lifestyle, as you might be able to tell, but it's rewarding. You see, even though I'm doing what I feel I must in this situation, this is still freedom. This is the freedom to lead a meaningful life. To not be trapped chasing fleeting desires or, running away from that which we find causes aversion in us. but really inhabiting one's life and trying to make the most meaning out of every moment. That's freedom. The freedom to have a meaningful life. Not to do anything, like in this weird notion that an individual could possibly like do anything, in that kind of individualist idea of freedom. Not that. But instead finding oneself situated in one's particular seat or place in the whole cosmos, in the web of relations, to find meaningful ways to contribute to the thriving of oneself and others. That's a kind of satisfaction and happiness that cannot be found, actually, through doing only what one wants. Nor can it be found through like using other beings or other forces in your life for your own shallow self-gratification. To use other beings is, on some structural level, to objectify them, to make them objects in your environment, and you are the subject who acts upon them. That's not healthy. What is a healthy way to orient to the world is to subjectify everything around you, which means looking at it as a subject, as a consciousness that has its own volition and meaning and purpose in life, and to interact with great curiosity about that and about one's own meaning and one's own life and what one must do and must become. So going beyond the shallow self and the shallow wants that we have, we move towards that more whole self. And becoming a more whole self is just like becoming a wild being again. It's a type of rewilding, it's a type of re-indigenizing that puts us closer in kind to that mountain lion that is fully self-organized. So ultimately, what one must do, I can't prescribe that. Each person, each entity has to go through a process of sense-making that for themselves. But what one must do is not defy one's nature, right? Just definitionally, one must not defy one's own nature. So to live from that expanded idea and knowledge of a bigger self, a self that transcends you, a self that is really identified with the well-being of all other beings, this looks like showing up, taking responsibility, and participating, engaging with all of your relations as comprehensively and consciously as you can. It means following the thread of your calling, the gifts that you are called to put forth in the world, and stitching those into the world as you go, and getting feedback and shaping yourself from the feedback. It means following your intuition, your bliss, your sense of what is right, and in doing so, possibly defying other social orders. But in these practices, we enable a paradise of wholeness to emerge within and without. So may it be. So yes, in this overarching discipline of becoming more whole, it's clear that the work of meaning making and of developing agency are married together, braided with one another. The more agency, the more meaning, and vice versa. So next I'll be discussing sync, S-Y-N-C-H, short for synchronization, and also can be referred to and understood as intuition. And that is about how we merge our being, our spirit, our intellect, our will, with that of the living beings and systems around us in a cooperative fashion. And this is a life way that involves great attunement. So we'll get into that in the next talk. So all of this comes down to becoming more alive yourself and helping spread aliveness. After all, fractal praxis is all about aligning with and amplifying life and the core patterning of life in everything we do. So we have to meaning make because we are living beings. We have to develop agency so that we have more influence eventually over the world from a place of wisdom, from a place of care and caring and knowledge about the environment and about our world. And ultimately then when we kind of magically and actively align ourselves with life in its dynamic form of how it's moving and how it's making decisions at the collective scale, we amplify the power within ourselves and within our communities to achieve the dreams and goals that we have. So this ultimately all boils down to self-organizing. Life is self-organizing. So let's live. Let's live as much and as broadly and as greatly as we can. Thank you for being a part of this beloved community called Fractal Praxis, which consists of people who are committed to amplifying and increasing the overall good they do in the world and reducing the harmful tendencies in their own lives and in their own communities through pattern praxis, through fractal praxis, and through just a general ethic of caring and of liberation and of striving for liberation. So thank you so much for watching this second episode of the second part of the two-part series on agency. And next we will get into that synchronization and alignment with nature that can come spontaneously through us like a channel. Get excited for that topic. That's a big part of my life that I'm looking forward to sharing, that I've cultivated. Thank you for watching and listening. Please support Fractal Praxis's work in any way that you can. And finally, merry meet and merry part and merry meet again.